Alright guys, welcome back to the Man Time Ranch. Your first time joining us. What I'm doing today is servicing all of the hay equipment. I'm taking you through and showing you some of the stuff that I didn't know getting into the business of doing hay and owning land. And I had never actually intended or planned to work the land, so to speak. And after a while of just, finding some good deals, getting the tractor that was on the property going. Finding some used hay equipment like this. I believe this is a 373 Hayliner, New Holland baler. Going through it, I had to actually rebuild the bale chamber, which is where the hay is baled up in here. It had been rotting out with hay left in it from the season prior, which I learned my lesson you absolutely cannot do. That hay gets wet and it just makes a rusty mess inside of there. So, fortunately, I followed my own rules and serviced this in the fall after the last cut, and so it is good to go. I'll take you through and kind of show you all the parts and pieces and inner workings of how this thing works, and show you how I know that I've already completely serviced it. I just gave it a rinse down with PB Blaster to keep the new kind of hay dust from sticking to it, and I'll show you all that. So we'll just kind of start at the front here. It connects up to the back of the tractor and the PTO shaft here. Runs back. It's also connected at the rear drawbar of the tractor. It's got a drive shaft that comes back to this flywheel, and the flywheel is spun by the tractor. This thing is huge, big cast chunk of steel. There's one thing to note here, right in there, let's see if I can zoom in on it, is what's called a shear pin. And if you're going to run one of these things, you need to carry about 10 of those with you. Because every once in a while you get too much hay in the bale chamber and it'll back up and that sucker will pop, and it's made to pop to save everything else from breaking. But how it works here is you've got this thing spinning around, and it's got an arrow on there showing you which way that it goes. But this will spin around and it will, you can see down there the tines are spinning. You've got this big arm spinning around, and there is a big ram in there that packs that hay into the bale chamber as this thing is spinning around. And it is nice and smooth and free. And this thing probably has, I don't know, 50 zerks or so on it. We've got a couple here, but they're completely cleaned. And I can tell that by looking at the end of it there. It doesn't have a bunch of hay dust caked on and around it. Still got some fresh red lube coming out of the end of it there. And so I've done a really good service on it in the fall to keep it in this condition. You've got all these inspection panels to inspect all that stuff. I re-lubed the chain. It's got a chain here, chain inside this cover back over here. Another inspection panel. And you can see here, a previous owner didn't do a very good job of cleaning it up. This is an area here that collects a lot of the hay dust and dirt coming up off the ground as it's being baled. So I learned my lesson getting it, that a lot of this rust and stuff can be prevented from having proper maintenance in the fall as we get done with hay season. Moving along, you've got this area here, which is all of your what's called the knotting or knotters, and this is your baling wire here that's come up. You can see I've already set it, I've cleaned it out and reset it. and you can see the wire coming down in here, right there. So what you do is you run that to where it can be picked up by your forks. You've got two forks, one here and one over there, and on the end of the forks it's got a little wheel that will catch the baling wire and shove it up into those knotters and actually through a bale when it's full of hay. So I've got that set. What you do is you run the baling wire through here, tie a knot off to something, and then this right here triggers when those forks come up and knot the bale. And that is through this wheel here. It'll actually spin that as the hay pushes back through the bale chamber. And let's see what else we got here. Oh, we got our counter. Okay. And then this is all just driven sprockets and things that then drive the knotting system. And that again is all set by this mechanism here. Once it reaches top, it activates a whole bunch of stuff here to moving and doing things. But you can see every zerk on here has got a real nice amount of lube on the end of it that is unencumbered by any of the hay dust on there. So I know that I've serviced it, lubed up all my chains, and we've got chains here, chains up top here. I'll look down the bale chamber here. Well, I've got my gate up, but you can see everything is in really good working order as far as the assembly here. I bought this, I think for around $1,000 or so, but the bale chamber down in there was all rotted out, and I can take you around the front side of it here and show you what I'm talking about, where I've had to weld in some angle iron and weld in some pieces of plate and things. So the hay is going to come up through here, and then it's got these forks that are pushing the hay toward the chamber as this is running, and that's driven here and connected up to the arm up in the front there. And so as that hay is being shoveled in here, it's then being shoveled in there, and then after it gets shoveled in, these retract and it comes back, and then it grabs its next load. Yeah, right down here is the inside of the bale chamber that was all rotted out, and you can still see some of that rot on the outside, but I've built an inner frame inside of there with some angle and some plate. You can see some of that new angle down in there. This was just too thin to try to repair, so I just had to replace the inside with some new steel. And that's pretty much it for the baler. Alright guys, welcome back. Mantime Ranch. This is the last thing we've got on our docket today. It's going through and servicing the hay cutter. This is a New Holland 451, I believe. Yep, 451. And so this hay cutter is actually the first piece of equipment I got in hay cutting. I was at a guy's house picking up a culvert to redo the culvert at the front of the road there, and I noticed all of his hay equipment, and kind of started talking to him about hay and hay equipment and different things, and chainsaws and antique tools and, you know, things men talk about. And he said, well, I'm getting a little too old to run this old manual hay cutter. He said, I thought this was going to be the last hay cutter I was ever going to need, and I got, you know, this plus, you know, enough spare parts to rebuild it 3 times over. And he said, I'm never going to use it again, so if you're looking to get into the hay business and you want it, it's yours. So I graciously said yes and thank you, and so that's basically how I got into doing hay. So I'm going to take you through how to service this as taught by me by the original owner who bought it new, and enjoy. Alright, so the first thing I did is I lubed up all of the hay cutting teeth, and you can see on here these are actually the serrated type teeth. There's also a flat type of tooth. But what you want to look for on here is all of your rivets, making sure all of your rivets are still attached. These rivets up here on this main bar are typically the ones that'll break. You'll get hay cutters that are loose, so you want to run through, check all your hay cutters, make sure all your rivets are still there. One of the essential things to have on hand when running a sickle cutter like this is going to be these rivets. These rivets are known to break if you hit something in the hayfield, and these teeth will get loose. But I've lubed it all up here with some PB Blaster, just kind of checking to make sure all of my teeth are sharp. They look to be all good and sharp. You've got these forged tines. You want to make sure they're all tight. You've got the keepers on top here. And these are all readily available parts. This 451 sickle cutter is actually one of the best made cutters and still sold today. Of course, today you're going to probably pay about 10 times, you know, what I paid for this used one, with 3 times the amount of parts to rebuild it. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is start by greasing up all the zerks on the ratcheting assembly here. This hay cutter has a unique ratcheting system where it ratchets back and forth to move your sickle cutters. And one really neat thing about that is it has a vibration these are thirsty little guys. So it makes a vibration that'll actually knock dirt and debris off of the cutter bar here as it's running down through the field. There you go. We got some grease squirting out of there. That's a good thing. Yeah, these little suckers are thirsty. This is one of the most important things to lube up before every cut, as they just constantly ratchet back and forth like that at a high rate of speed. So squeeze it till you start seeing some of that old grease ooze out of the sides here. And we may have to take this back cover off to get to, nope, there it is. So there's one zerk way back here, and I'm go ahead and wiping off any of the dirt and debris that is on there before I go to lube it. You are thirsty. Okay, so I've got just enough grease in there to where they start oozing out. I'm happy with that. Yeah, I actually had one of these break on me toward the end of the last season's cut, and had to replace out one of those. Had to take this whole assembly apart. And then from there we'll just go on to some of the other Zerks. And again, we'll just kind of work from one side to the other. And we'll just put lube in there until we start to see it seeping out. Got a Zerk on the back side here. And I thought there was one on the main cutter here, but I don't see it. I may have been imagining things. Anyways, at any rate, I sprayed this main pin for the sickle bar down with PB Blaster. That's a good all-around lubricant that I use on quite a few things. Alright, we'll just continue to go ahead and grease our Zerks here and get our U-joints greased up. This U-joint here, if I remember right, is one of the tougher ones to get to. And I'll probably have to compress this lock washer that goes around here and slide this back in order to get this lubricated. I think the Zerk comes in from this side, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it sure does. And I've actually broken this U-joint because of lack of lubrication, because it's just a pain in the butt to get at it. So let's go ahead and continue on here. Got one down here. Got one here. This is our main point of lubrication here for the drive shaft. Alright, so I got that one. Let's see where else. We've got one right here. Got another one down here. Okay, got that one. Kind of working my way from right to left here. Got two on this side. Okay, I've got all those. Got one right here. Okay, got that one. Looks like I maybe got one on here somewhere. Yep. Must lube all of those. Okay, so this is our main problem. This is going to be our problem child. So get a little screwdriver, see if we can't compress those, slide that back, and then get at that grease circ. Okay, we're going to be working right here. Sun's coming out. Oh yeah, just as much of a pain as I remember it being. Just does not want to compress, does not want to move. Alright, so these two, I think, are the main. Oh! Hey, look at there. We got it. Okay, so now I can rotate to find my grease spot for the Zerk. And there she blows. Like I said, this is probably the hardest one to get to on this piece of equipment. And also, very important, as I had to learn the hard way after breaking this U-joint, and then it gets really hard. So, lots of grease in there, making sure that it's squishing out. And now we'll go and try to get the locking pin back on there. Alright, so what I learned taking it off was it likes to have the middle one in there first, and then one of the two on the sides. So, can't get it here. Alright, there's the top. Okay, there is our first part of the ring. We'll get that seated in there. And then with our other screwdriver, get the other parts in there. Okay. Oh, hey. Ha ha ha! We got them. You can see 1, 2, and 3. It's locked back on there. Job well done. Alright guys, thanks for joining me on this episode of Man Time. We serviced all of the hay equipment, and hopefully I've inspired you to go out there, get some grease up under your fingernails, get dirty, take something apart, and fix it. See you next time. point so it's level and the hay cutter's level.